Why did she put the placed in it? Totally. Yeah. Must have got some sweet deals on it. Yeah. She should get back to that.
She thought about
Okay. Somewhere with it.
She was
Yeah.
Terry can sign up.
Yeah. I didn't know.
She wants to.
I think. Yeah, I get that. Gives you enough time to actually do something, right? Because some of them, I think they literally ran for airport hotel and back there.
She missed the pretty years. You get there. Can't do
Right. Yeah.
it. That was it.
Yeah.
Okay, I think it's 6:30. Good evening, and welcome everybody to the regular board meeting for November 16th, 2020. I'd like to call the meeting to order and start with doing introductions. So Area 1, Madeline Lehman. Area 2, David Scott-Free. Area 3, Nicole Gillis. Area 4, 5 Campbell. Area 5, Helen Gilbert. Area 5, Aaron Evans. Area 5, Bill Smith. Thank you. I would like to acknowledge that today's board meeting is being held on the traditional territory of the Winnipesaukee and Treaty 8. At this point in time, I'm going to call for additions and acceptance of the agenda. I have made note of a couple of items. One is to request the change of the order of the agenda this evening to item 13.1, which is the ERM presentation up to 5.0, and add item from the in-camera to the public, snow clearing concern, and we will place that under 9.2 under the secretary for motion. Any further additions or amendments? Seeing none, can I call for a motion to accept the amended agenda? David? Kara? Thank you. So moved. Okay. And now we move to the next part of the agenda, which is the election of the board of officers. We'll start with the election of the board chair. So we'll start with a secret ballot for nomination, call for nominations for the board chair. So Stephen, you'll give me a hand. So we will handle those ones first, please.
Oops, sorry.
Thank you. Thank you. I'd like to announce congratulations to board chair by acclamation, Helen Gilbert.
Congratulations.
And at this point in time, I will pass the chair over to the new board chair for the new school year, or for the new year. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your vote of confidence. I do recognize that I still have lots of learning to do, and I know that I'll be calling on lots of things. Thank you very much. Moving on, we're looking for the election of the vice chairperson. So if we can hand out the nomination forms for that, please.
It's not like you have to write a lot.
Well, it's better than that one year where I broke my right arm and we had to write it in. It's like,
Check mark.
which one did Aaron nominate? I don't know. That was awful.
Everybody right there, but-
That was terrible. Like, there's no secret ballot here.
May not be the best time to say this, but through all of this, you've done an amazing job. Thank you.
Your nominations for vice.
Just make it up to the one with the, or I.
Yeah, those are all one.
Great. I have, the following people have been nominated for vice chair: Madeline, Nicole, and Idas. Michelle? Sorry, and Bill? Nice. All right, so Bill, are you going to write your names down?
Sure.
Okay, so Bill is going to put his names down. Ida?
No, I think I've proven that I can be effective and help you guys in any way that I can.
Oh, how eloquent.
I'm still here, I'm available, I've proven that, so.
Nicole?
No, sorry. I dropped the ball the last couple months and I probably won't be picking it up anytime soon, honestly, so.
Recognizing a huge amount of understanding. Madeline?
So is that Madeline or?
Madeline and Bill that have let their names down.
And there's those little wooden things like the ATM, right?
No, they have these big paddles, with these
Oh, I
boxes
see.
at the
Wow.
end. that
Oh,
they-
Fancy.
they
Yeah,
walk around.
yeah,
I've
yeah.
only seen it once.
Next year. Sorry.
So I would like to acknowledge that Madeline will be our vice chair. So thank you very much for being willing to let your name stand and maybe back up.
I'm gonna have to learn from you.
Nomination for provincial council.
That's good, we don't want you to. I'm just gonna go first after.
Unanimously, and she's willing to accept the nomination. It's Erin.
Thank you, I love that job.
We know it.
It's my favorite.
As it is unanimous, we're looking for an alternate. Is there anybody that would like to take that role on?
Oh, we
Don't be
vote on
like
it, we
We
nominate on
actually
it.
nominate
I'm afraid
both,
so.
okay?
I'm afraid so.
We're on it.
It's called democracy.
Oh, democracy, thank you.
It's all the way around. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Can we give an award speech?
It's nice when somebody who really enjoys what we're doing. It's nice that you pay attention.
Yeah, it is nice. But you all agree with this.
So just one, is she's willing to accept their alternate if it's been nominated?
No, we have to vote on this. My mistake. Sorry, we're gonna get this right. Yeah. We have three
Those are all the same
nominations.
name.
Okay, all right,
Three nominations.
right. I have nominations for Ida, Bill, and Nicole. Nicole, are you willing to be the alternate on provincial council?
Yes, that I could do and learn.
All right. Bill
Yes, please.
and Ida.
No, I'll let these guys learn.
So 2 names.
Two names, Bill and Nicole. Nicole will be the alternate on provincial council. All right, we move on to BCPC rep.
You have to clear.
Yeah, Claire.
Oh, sorry,
So Bill and I can't be nominated for the conflict of interest. And
Right.
vote.
Don't like that either.
Oh, yeah, no, you can't either.
And David can't either.
thank you.
So
We're declaring
can we nominate
conflict, so,
Madeline, Ida,
and Nicole,
Nicole.
and Helen.
There's three
So-
on.
We can still.
It's okay, we know.
We can still vote and
Yeah, we
nominate,
can
we
still-
just can't, yeah, and vote, we just can't.
You just can't accept a nomination.
That's right.
No,
So for next year, we have to put that on the split.
So this is for BCPC.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that would be helpful. Oh, no problem.
We're okay.
Sorry.
I'm gonna get right yet. So we have 3 nominations. Who are you supposed to get? One? That's just one, I think. Okay, and that's 2. Okay, and this is 3. Right, so nominated for BCPC rep are Madeline, Ida, and Helen. So Ida, are you going to let your name stand?
Yeah, I'll let my name stand for this.
Ida will let her name stand. And I'll let my name stand.
Did you say yes? You
I'm sorry.
So there's 2, correct? Ida or Helen?
Ida or Helen, yeah. Thank you.
Huh?
So quick.
So Ida, you are our BC rep for the year. And now we need to look at the alternate for BCPC.
I thought it was.
Works better, thank you. Nominations. One. All right, our 3 nominations for alternate for BCPC are Madeline Wiener, Nicole Gillis,
No, sorry, that I couldn't go with it, after that lackluster, sure, I'm gonna take, yeah, sorry, I'm gonna take my name right out of there, that's awful. Helen, don't. I heard myself, sure.
Oh, there you go, okay. I wasn't sure.
It was the alternate, Nicole. I know, I heard myself say, sure. And I thought, well, you really wanted that bad, right?
So could I please get a motion to destroy the ballot? Moved by Aaron, second by David.
I'm gonna just delegate you to take care of that for us. Thank you, Leah.
Right. We did an agenda change, and before we do our trustee celebrations, we have a presentation. And we are very much looking forward to this presentation because we've been waiting for it for a long time. So, McGinn is going to do the risk management presentation.
Just pulling up on slide 3.
So welcome Don McMillan. He is our ERM consultant. Thank you.
I don't know where I should I stand over in the corner. Whatever takes me back here.
Yeah.
Don, I'm just gonna keep this out. Start this. And I'll be your friend and you just
I will flag you. Great. So good evening, everyone. So we're just going to get into a little bit about enterprise risk management. I know that you had done this in the past, and who was here when M&P last did this? Oh, you are all here.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is no pressure.
New board was one of the very first things that we did.
Oh, okay. Okay. How many of you remember it? Okay, then I can ask lots of questions. Okay. So anyway, I'm Don McMillan. To give a little background as to who I am, where I'm from, and what I've done in my past lives. So I have an MBA from York University, the Sherwood School of Business in Toronto. I'm a chartered professional accountant here in British Columbia. Right now I'm undergoing or trying to finishing off my Canadian risk management designation. And that's through the University of Toronto. And I'm the former chief financial and risk officer at both Lakeview Credit Union and North Peace Credit. So I know David from that. And David would be familiar with the work I did on enterprise risk management at North Peace. So this is all had to do with this, right? Yeah. So, when I was at North Peace in Lakeview, we like, this is best practice work, enterprise risk management is for all sorts of organizations across the world. Okay, and it's really, Stephen asked me where this came from, a while back. It's developed out of what was the foundations of hazard risk management. Hazard risk management was the traditional stuff, fire risks. So, for instance, getting insurance to compensate or protect you if you had a fire in your building, or dealing with things, sort of mitigation impacts. So, sprinkler systems, alarm systems, safety doors, things like that. That's the traditional insurance risk management piece. And so where risk management took off from that was really a post 9/11 situation, when we looked at the world from a much more bigger perspective, and not just the sort of the physical hazard piece, but a bigger piece from there. It incorporates all areas, so strategic, competitive, reputational, financial, human resource, technology. So every area of an organization has risk associated with it. And so this is now expanded to incorporate all those areas. It addresses both downside risk as well as upside risk. So in most cases, what you're going to see as most risk is downside related to it. But in certain areas such as competitive or financial or market pricing, there are upsides to risk and upsides that you can potentially take advantage of. So enterprise risk management addresses both those aspects of things. So basically, what do we look at enterprise risk management? It comes down to one, you identify the risk, and then you define probability, consequence, and criticality. Well, criticality is the result of probability times consequence, okay? And so when we turn around and we want to rank what are the highest hot button items with regards to enterprise risk management, we judge it on the basis of criticality, okay? So probability, all of this stuff you could do tons of work on if you wanted to dig in really deep and say, okay, what's the probability of earthquake in the Peace region, right? There's some data out there that you could work for. And then you'd have consequence from that. You'd kind of say, well, good, bad, schools and all the rest. You could go down rabbit holes galore, okay, with regards to all of this. So we tend to turn around and look at this in relation to each other. So therefore, this risk in relation to that risk, okay? It's an easy way to kind of look at things and get things around in your head as to, well, here for an example. What's the probability of a pandemic? 100% today, right? So if we'd asked that question a year ago, we might have thought it was somewhere down at that sort of 10, 15%. We'd had some experience with SARS and things like this, but we didn't really think this was going to happen, right? Today, it's at 100%. So, but you're going to turn around and rank, so that earthquake example versus the pandemic, especially this neck of the woods, not known for earthquakes, right? Of any size, at least. You're going to judge probability and you're going to judge consequence specific to those and how they relate to one another, okay? So what we've done in updating this, and see if we can move on to the next slide. We've updated your document, okay, to turn around and address some of these concerns, and I'll get into that. Why enterprise risk management? It's a tool that can be used to supplement both strategic and annual planning, okay? So, we're doing this now, and I don't know what your cycle is with regards to doing your plans. Is it June year end?
Or annual as well as sort of strategic plans that cover 3 to 5
Multiple years, yeah, okay. And what time of year do you usually do it?
Well, next year we're entering major strategic planning,
Okay,
and annually, sort of educationally wise, is every fall there's an update.
fall, okay. So, so I would suggest, when you turn around going forward and want to update your enterprise risk management framework, you want to do that in line with when you're doing it with your annual planning. Okay, so that it's up to date annually just as much as you're looking at those other things, because it could be an informative tool in terms of what you're doing. It prioritizes risk, as I said earlier, about, with regards to criticality. And so you can see that, and that'll help inform what you do with, for instance, either operational or capital budgets, okay? Enterprise risk management addresses both inherent, okay, that's the risk out there, and residual risk, which is inherent less the impact of all the mitigation strategies that you're doing. So the mitigation strategy could be stuff that you're putting in place in terms of procedures and operations and safety things, versus or an outside insurance policy. All those are mitigation strategies, and that gets you down to basically residual risk. Okay, and that's sort of what's left over after you've done all your work. This is an update. These are updated heat maps for the school district based on the work that we've done this year. And just quickly to point out, so red bad, green good, right? we've turned around, and this year we've moved, I think last time you did it, they had little voting buttons, right? And they averaged things out well. We've moved to more like integers here in the definition, so we don't have the 0.35 or 0.26. So I adjusted this target related to the integers. So what you see right now is from a inherent risk, there's quite a number of items. Each of these, if you go into the document, you can clearly see which risk number they are. It will identify what they are. There's lots up there, more up here and such, but once you've mitigated and done all the stuff you've done, it's going to pull a lot of that back, okay? And you're going to see a lot more stuff in the green or in the yellow areas than you saw that you first had. The two that are really up here right now, and we're going to talk about them later, okay, it's just because we know about them, they haven't been actively mitigated yet. And so as a result, that's why they're still up in the red zone there. So we have future mitigation plans for them. And so hopefully once those are put in place, those will migrate towards the good as well, okay? Some of these things, some of these things, you'll look at it, they're maybe not worth too much effort in some ways. So, stuff with, for instance here, if we look at this as likelihood, this is consequence, right? So the thing is with low consequence, high likelihood, it's like, okay, they're gonna happen lots, but they don't really hurt us all that much, right? So those kind of things, you're probably gonna accept the risk that associates with them and really not over mitigate those particular ones. The other side of the fence is you've got ones with very low likelihood and high consequence down over here, okay, or, which is like that earthquake example, right? Not really ever gonna happen. We hope it never happens, right? It could be devastating when it does, but the likelihood is so low that you're gonna put your attention on other things. Next slide. So you've done the work conducted by MNP back in 2018. This is the work that we did today to update your framework builds on their structure. Okay, so we haven't reinvented the wheel or anything like this. So it's working off their foundational work. We've updated the current environment. So we've looked at the world it is today versus how it looked 2 years ago. We've broken out a few risks categories. So they had some summary categories that I didn't think really addressed the nature of it and didn't really address the whole notion between risk and consequence. So one of those was, for instance, your 2018 year-end plan did not mention the word pandemic anywhere. So I think it was, one of those things we had to turn around and break out. It was buried in a category called business disruption, okay? So, but there's that one. A snowstorm could be a business disruption. A power outage can be a business disruption. All of those have different probabilities. Various ones have different consequences as well. So what we've done is we've expanded some of that there and in the asset management category, as well as in some of the IT pieces. And we've also identified a few new risks that you also see in the document that are identified as new. So for instance, the environment, never mentioned in the prior document. So anyway, that's been updated in that. We'll flip to the next one. So here we are, 38 risk categories. Okay, so this here is based on inherent risk. Okay, it would look different. If we looked at residual risk, you'd be more over this way and fewer over that way. But you can see here, hot, pandemic, funding, education quality and stuff versus green pieces here, IT obsolescence, structural obsolescence, facility fire. A lot of those are, because there's lots of mitigated pieces in place. You've got separate facilities. You know, they don't spread, it's not like everything's in one site. So, so this is why they're looked at on that. Now, I welcome you if you're really into looking at this as a board. If you want to go through the scoring numbers and say, I disagree with that one, I disagree with that one, you can play with these and rechange their ratings. I've done this with some input from Brenda and Stephen, and but basically also trying to relate this to experience and where everything else sits. Okay, we're going to go in and highlight a few of them here in terms of what they are and what the definition is, mitigation strategy, and scoring. Funding risk was one of the top. Inherent risk of 20, still has a bit of a residual risk, is the risk of inadequate funding to support the delivery programs' capital requirements, due largely to enrollment fluctuations, competition, online education and other options there, the impact of COVID that's having on our financials for the organization, loss of income from international students. Now, it's reasonably well mitigated because you can adjust program and staffing, flex up, flex down. You can get grants from the governments. You can build it into your budgetary cycle, so you know what's coming and you know that you have to have a balanced budget and such. So this helps mitigate this. It doesn't eliminate the risk, but it certainly reduces it. Recruitment and retention. Again, risk ability to attract and retain qualified staff to support strategic goals, staff turnover, knowledge retention issues. I don't know what the abbreviation for TTOCs mean.
Teacher teaching on call.
Oh, okay. Real challenges in succession planning. And of course, I brought this up, I think, just at the same time Brenda told me she was leaving that day or something. Anyway, you've got great human resource capacity within the school district, professional staff, robust recruitment programs, support from the government in terms of incentives and on the recruitment side, and low housing costs, especially to attract people to rural schools. Again, these are highlighted in terms of scoring. So this is yellow, red, so red bad, orange, yellow, green. You could dive into this kind of stuff even more so if you want. There's lots of different ways you can take a look at this and say, well, how do we measure if we're being successful in this? There are, and you'll know this through your work here, like how many TTOCs that you hire versus this year versus last year as you're being successful. So there's ways you can tell how well you're doing in mitigation from that. Next slide. Education quality, risk of quality of education is compromised due to lack of required skills qualifications, labor disruption, snow days, lack of staff skill level and experience. Mitigation, ministry measurement requirements. So there's lots of stuff you do right now that the ministry measures you on in terms of your success, in terms of grade progression and others. Learning services model helps support mitigating this. So you see a big jump or a big difference here between 18 inherent and the residual of 7.5. So, you're doing lots right now that's taking that number way down. So, which is great. Confiscation. This is that hot button one that's sort of up there and it's because it's unresolved still, okay, which is your Cameron Lake site. And the reason why it's way up there is because the assets on the books are, I think, 2.6 million or something like this. And there is a risk there that, you could lose that. You might write it off or something like that. So once you address that, potentially with a new partnership agreement or leasing arrangements or some sort of government compensation, this number will go like that, right? So it's red and hot still because it's a future mitigation piece that you're still working on. Pandemic, of course, shutdown, learning interruption, HR implications, mitigation, prevention and intervention, emergency funding, capacity for hybrid learning. You know, and I think maybe you might have looked at this a little different back in March than you would today, just because you've got some experience under your belt on how to turn around and deal with this. So your mitigation and how you're doing is far superior than you might have looked back in March. And so this is another reason why you should at least look at this annually. We want to tell one good story, right? So IT obsolescence. So you've got, your IT group, risk that the systems become ineffective, inadequate, and unreliable to meet future business needs. So business disruption, loss of critical data, fines, penalties, reputational damage. And you're doing lots of work here in terms of self-evaluation and reviews that are turning around and saying that this is what we need to do to upgrade our systems. And that's in process. Some companies, banking, David would know this, that, where you really rely on technology for your existence, that's a bigger hot button item. It's not as critical in your environment. So that's part of the reason why it tends to be green here as well. Change crisis management, another good result. Turning around and saying, yes, the risk of the culture is not supportive of transformative change that's required, an ability to address urgent or strategic objectives, negative impact on staff engagement, adverse impact on reputation. So you got a district culture of innovation, province leading solutions, and strong leadership, both from management and the board, that help mitigate these pieces. So that helps bring your scoring down here as well. So this is 2, 4, 6, 7 of them I think we looked at here. There's 38. We'll go back to there. Next one forward. Oh, there we are. So we shared these documents with you in terms of the risk register and the risk scoring. Risk register has all the definitions, has some mitigation strategies, has the scoring with it, sort of explains everything. The risk scoring is just a comparative. It showed you sort of where we're scoring things today versus how things were scored 2 years ago. And you'll see some additions between, for instance, asset management broke out into 4 or 5 different categories on that particular document. So anyway, you dive into that and you can, to your heart's content. So that's what we've been up to. And I just open to any questions that you might have with regards to the work that's been done, the documents, the process. No?
It was emailed out, it's not on the Word documents.
Oh, it was
So it went out on Friday and it's on SharePoint.
The details are you talking about? Or-
That's,
Yeah.
It's not on.
no, I don't have it at all. Well, I have it on my SharePoint.
Friday after
Yeah.
noon.
You emailed it out, right?
But I have a copy of it in my email. I'm sure I saw it. It was on SharePoint.
Thank you. Anyway,
Just if I can, just, thanks, Dawn. It was great working with Dawn, diving back into this whole thing and kind of refreshing what it is. In most, if not all cases, there are things going on in terms of mitigation, but there will always be some areas that will remain high in terms of risk. It's just a question of how what we have in place. And staff are happy to kind of each year pull this up again to see where we're at. But other than that, most things are in hand. I mean, even though we didn't have a pandemic in there, it's an example of something that basically got a lot of guidance from the provincial government, from BCSTA, and that became the mitigation strategy, even though that was remained as a high risk, right? But appreciate your time, Dawn.
So
Are people at the stage where they're comfortable to ask Dawn questions now, or do you want more time to have looked at the document? And we can come back to it at another board meeting?
I would like more time to look at the document and come back.
I'm certainly prepared to work with any of the trustees and ask questions of Dawn. If they have anything, more than welcome to forward them and work to get the answers. That would be helpful.
I'm not going anywhere, so, you know, no one's traveling these days anyway, so.
Well, and in some cases, I think it would be, in a lot of cases, it would be staff sort of responding to maybe questions you have around those mitigation strategies.
Yeah, most likely,
So we'll be happy to do that.
Absolutely.
I just am looking at faces and think that people need some more time to absorb.
That was great.
But thank you
Thanks,
very
Dawn.
much.
Thank you.
It was really good.
It was a fun and educational experience, so I appreciate it. So anyway, I'll let you go. Have a nice night.
Thanks so
you
much.
very, very much.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, I missed that. Yeah.
Talk to you soon.
Yeah, and I found it. I found it. It was in the, when Mia emailed out because I didn't look in the email. I just saw that you emailed that the agenda packages were up. So then I just went to SharePoint. I didn't actually look at your email. It was attached to that email. That's what my mistake was. I just see, you know, Leah says the board things are up and I'm like, great. And then I go there. I don't open the email.
But it is really, really nice to
Yeah.
have this finished to this point and brought back to us. I mean, it will be an ongoing thing, but it was kind of one of those things that was hanging over there. So it's tidy to it.
And it's a living document.
It is a
Constantly evolving, so it never stops.
Well, it's
pandemic we would never really thought about. All right.
And it was interesting to see you guys to see how we move.
yeah, those numbers.
It also, I'm going to say this, it was nice to have it finished off by somebody local. I mean, not that the work that we did before didn't involve some local people, but some of the people that came to present to us were thrown in. This person is local and has that Fort St. John understanding. That's a good thing, which is nice. We don't always have that.
It is.
Great. Moving on to trustee input celebrations. We'll start with Ida.
Yeah, I did a few things and the schools have been put out some out their Halloween parades and the Remembrance Day celebration. And I really actually like that they did that online because I could do more than one school. And I was really touched when I went to the Taylor and watched theirs because they did no stone left behind. And when I went into it, they had done my father's grave. So I thought that was really, and I didn't know they were doing that. I'm sure they don't know that because my name is different. But it was pretty cool how they had done all the veterans in the cemetery down there that the class had gone over and cleaned the graves off and put it off on all of them. I thought that was quite good. And then I watched a couple of other Remembrance Days and so I thought that was cool that I could see more than just being able to attend one school. I had a meeting with the Taylor Council and we talked about the daycare and they sent a letter that we'll be seeing later on in the agenda for support. And they really want to thank the board for everything that we do. Their preschool, they are still in the midst of thinking of what they're doing about that until they do their budget. And so they want to continue it. And they said as far as any furniture or anything, because we wondered when I had a meeting with Brenda and Craig and us, we didn't know whose furniture was in the room. But when I went to the council, they said, it's all of our furniture, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter whether we have a preschool or not. If the school can use it, they can use it. So that was quite nice. They really talked also when I met with them that they would still like to have a meeting between the municipalities and regional district. And it was their suggestion. They didn't even know we were going to have a meeting there, but they said it'd be nice at the new school. Because they didn't get to, they said the opening was different. So normally they would have come to an opening and had a tour of the school. I did tell them that they could get a hold of the administrator there and they could do a tour. But they said that. And I think that's all we've done since the last board meeting.
Thank you very much. Trustee Evans.
You must be going in alphabetical order. What did I do? Well, Terry and Stephen and I met last week, feels like 2 years ago, but last week at the first policy meeting, just to kind of get our heads wrapped around moving forward. I did pop into the job fair. That was at the Pomeroy. I was there for another meeting, and I thought my other meeting had started a half hour before it actually did, so I was there quite early. So I thought I'd pop into the job fair and take a peek. And there was, all the booths were had lots of people at them, not at the same time, but they were practicing physical distancing, and it was nice to see the school district there, and Cindy was there and stuff, and it was nice to see that and people coming up and talking about casual work and stuff with our district. So that was really great. Of course, from the committee meeting, you all know I attended the provincial council on the 24th, and then those internet letters are done for the advocacy for internet. So we could probably give you yours tonight, Michelle, and then we don't have to mail it, save a stamp. And then also I saw the Taylor Remembrance Day, and I think that was your grandson that put the poppy on your.
No, it wasn't.
Was it? Okay.
No, it was a different class.
Okay, I thought it was. He looked a little similar to one of your grandkids, so I thought it was your grandkid that did that. I thought that was a nice touch. And then I also, of course, zoomed into the Remembrance Day service here, and then I actually went down to Beards afterwards because they held a little thing there for some of the vets, and met a couple of veterans in the community that I hadn't met before. So that was
I have not attended much as of lately.
Natalie.
Did attend a Clearview Park meeting. And I guess we'll give their framework presentation on the next committee of the whole. Still thinking about zooming in just so more staff can maybe be part of it. And I'll do the plug-in for your nice 50th anniversary of Clearview. I was told, and it's true, there's a rhyme and reason for the upside down. There's a portion for history. If you want to read about how it got to be. And then the other one's obviously the current. And I don't recognize some kids, but boy, it goes fast. Kids don't grow up really fast, but so yeah, have a look through it. Neat little.
It's great.
Seen lots of changes and upgrades, including the gym, because when it was built, it was meant for K-8.
I remember playing volleyball there.
What, the blue line was up on the
Yep.
wall? And I know it's just nicer to attend these things with Remembrance Days, and I mean, Christmas concerts are gonna come up so much nicer in person. On the other hand, like you guys said, you can actually attend more than one. So, I guess look at the bus.
David.
Been in touch with all of my administrators, all 5 of them, there's about 4 to everything's going well. One had a bit of an issue today, but seems to be under control. Been in touch with some of the residents and everyone's happy. Two of the schools are very anxious for news, but we haven't got anything yet. We're waiting on the government. But everything's going quite smoothly.
I had a chat with Lori at Ambrose and Stockholm and seen Randy at high school. But had a sports council meeting and have another one in 2 days from now. And then I went to the Remembrance Day ceremony and kind of stood off to the back kind of and watched and took part in that.
Right, I've done a number of things, but perhaps the most significant was participating in Anne Roberts Young's Remembrance Day ceremony, and the slide up there is of her stage. And basically, although this is Anne Roberts Young, we had the same kind of work going on by our staff throughout the entire district. And as I said to you previously in the email, I think the work that our staff did was absolutely amazing in a pandemic time to take a significant thing like Remembrance Day and still have the kids connection. So the next slide is at Anne Roberts Young. They had the kids had made a poppy and they came and they used the lectern kind of as a cenotaph so that they had shown the kids about the laying of the wreath at the cenotaph. They had a number of different class presentations as well. And then the last one is just a picture of Belron's hallway. But from looking at different Facebook pages and some of the things that were posted by schools, there was some amazing Remembrance Day work done in our schools. So Michelle, we really want to make sure that you understand how much we appreciate the effort of your members, in particular around Remembrance Day. It was pretty significant. The other thing I'll bring some information that I've been doing, and I'll bring some information back to you on, is the ministry has put out some they're not focus groups, but to support the understanding for the framework for enhancing learning. There's different presenters, and I've been going to those presentations online. They are quite good. There's an extra one that they put on November 26th that's going to teach us how to access, where they put it on something called the source or SharePoint. So that would enable anybody to go and look at it at any time they wanted to. The next one that's coming up is the Aboriginal woman, whose name just went right out of my head, who spoke at our Northern Interior branch meeting. And she's going to talk about the concept of drawing our Aboriginal community into the strategic planning process. So they have been quite good. And so I will bring some. The last one was strategic engagement, and some of the things that we looked at retreat with the continuum of public participation that got brought up there, and it was really quite interesting. I think it will help us. Some of the information in that will help us move into strategic planning. So lots going on.
So Helen, what is the one on November 26th?
The one on November 26th is they were going to go and they're gonna show how to get into the source in SharePoint. And I'll try and put the registrations out for it and send it out. It's an additional one because I had been saying, okay, like the one that went so fast, I missed points, and I said, okay, where do we go to share it? And they had a plan of how they were going to share all this information back, but it's technology and it hasn't materialized. So they put an additional one in on the 26th, where they will go through some of that access stuff. And as soon as I understand it better, I will share that with you. Move on to minutes, item 6.0, minutes of the regular board meeting, October the 19th, pages 6 to 14 in your agenda package. Moved by Aaron, seconded by Bill. Give you an opportunity to just do a skim of those minutes. Are there any errors or omissions? All in favor then? Business arising from the minutes. The only action item is that we will meet with the city of Port St. John on December the 1st. That meeting is at Ann Roberts Young. We will start with a tour for anybody that wants to go on a tour. And I have confirmed with Gordon that we have the Ann Roberts Young music room from 3 to 5. We're not displacing anybody because the band people do that we will be in there. The other thing is that the Lavina Breckus, who does their meals program and cooking, is going to do the food for us, which is nice because it saves in these COVID times bringing somebody in. We've got somebody on site and we look at doing that. So a little bit closer to that, we'll ask for confirmation of who's attending. We had thought that we would leave the agenda fairly wide open. Obviously, COVID, and we'll add the concept of we'll leave to it, and we'll go from there and see if the city has any other things.
That wasn't my question, so there's not a nailed down agenda.
There's not a nailed down agenda.
And the school tour will start at 3, like we're not all part of that.
Right. Moving on then to 7.0, approval of excerpts of the regular board meeting September 21st, 2020, which is page 15 in your agenda package. Moved by David, seconded by Aaron. Any errors or omissions related to this? All right, all in favor? Thank you. Announcements and remarks. I will, Ida and I went to this last impact meeting, and one of the things that we've confirmed is they are always going to maintain one spot in the boardroom for a trustee to attend. And then the other spot will be first come, first served. So I will circulate to Corey Benny that you guys are coming, and then if you both want to attend in person, as long as she knows that, then she will hold 2 spots for us. And even though the SUPAC meeting starts at 12 o'clock, the DPAC meeting starts at 11 o'clock, and you are welcome to attend the DPAC meeting, as well as stay on for Stephen's SUPAC meeting. DPAC, they seem to like us there, so it's nice to be represented.
Do we need to confirm our attendance for DPAC?
If I know you're both going to attend in person, I will send that to Corey.
Yeah, I would too, if there's room, so if there's not room.
If there's not room, I think last time when you sent the Zoom link out, I was thinking, I wasn't scheduled to attend that one, but I remember kind of thinking, oh, I think it would have been too late for me.
Yeah, I'll send it out this week.
So what I had planned last time is if there wouldn't have been room, I was going to go into another room right here
Right here.
and just zoom in, so.
I'll get out of there.
And I mean, that's one of the things, especially for the SUPAC part. If you're interested in being part of the SUPAC meeting and you attend by Zoom, anybody.
Do we have all the PACs done their elections now? I think they should all be done now.
They were working on it. There was a couple that still had to have to have their elections. And I have asked DPAC, once they've got all their stuff gathered on who is there from each school, to circulate it so we know who's out there.
Because I mean, I've asked the schools, but it would be nice to see everybody else too, because then if I get a query, I can say, well, what school do you go to? This is your pack, right?
Right, okay, I will send them on your website. Any other additions to the announcements and reminders? Moving on to 9.0, senior staff reports.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And so on page 16, I'll start. You can see that there's, as usual, a brief summary in terms of human resources for teaching side. And this month, instead of the regular superintendent's report on the website, staff have put together what we hope to be an annual education report update. And so this would be like an achievement update as well as a bit of a synopsis of the previous year. And it is meant to be in alignment with our future obligations around our framework for enhancing student learning requirements as per the ministerial order. So I'll just pop this out quickly. I won't go through everything, but it's sort of also a practice of what this template could look like. I'm just trying to pull it out here right now. There we go. So for people, anybody that's online can see I've got it up on the screen here as well, eventually. You'll notice, for example, that it follows the same format as my superintendent's report, which is the categories of the framework. So intellectual, human, social, and skills and careers. And so there are reminders. You'll recognize some of these stories, but we've also added other information in terms of a summary of just some bits and pieces from the year, including feels like years ago, the BC Winter Games and things like that. It wasn't actually that long ago. So we want this to be public friendly, user friendly, kind of a magazine type of style, and it's why we did print a copy off for you, and we'll look at different ways that this can be actually maybe made into like a glossy magazine type of thing that would leave in doctors' offices or places around the region and the district, as well as being available electronically. So there's the regular areas, good information in there, and also as well the budget snapshot, which we really felt was a really visually friendly and accessible piece of information in the way that was designed. So we put that in there again too, and it's some really great information there that helps trustees in terms of responding to questions and where we allocate our resources. And then finally, the team has assembled what will become the ministerial requirements for data in terms of some pieces there. And we're trying to experiment with different ways of displaying this information. So my apologies in advance. It's sort of hard to read sometimes. It's a bit small. The purpose here is to just show you that we've got a bit of a plan in terms of how we're going to gather this information and send it forward. Keeping in mind that we essentially have two audiences. There's the audience of the ministerial order, which is to send that FESL report into the ministry with all the required data sets. But we want it to be much more than that. We want this to be a community public education report each year, which includes that achievement information. So there are a number of pieces there, and this doesn't mean that these are the only pieces of data that we include in there. It's just that we're starting with what's required and how we can display it. So you can have a look through there. I'll continue with my report though. Trustees will also find in their package, this would actually normally come under the ST for operations, but this is something Brenda and the team started, and so I'm just speaking to it. And that is, I asked that department to prepare a report on what we call activity rate. In a nutshell, it's the online payment system, and we've been looking for something for a long time to give parents the option of not, and of course, COVID hit, which makes it even better. They don't have to go into school to make payments. There's also the capacity for online forms, which is still not at a place where it needs to be in order to be completely useful. But the online payment system has been well received by staff and parents. Doesn't mean that there aren't glitches, and there's some feedback in that report for you to look at. Moving forward, there's no question that School District 16 needs to have an online payment option. It's just a question of what that will be. We've not set ourselves to only have one option. We've tried Activity Right, and to be quite frank, we almost helped them build their product. We were a partner district and we created what we think is a good product. Down the road, in a couple of years, it's possible that the student information system, MyEdBC, comes up with a similar type of process. At that time, we'll evaluate what is the most efficient and effective way to move forward. But right now, we're just pleased to have this capacity and passing on that information to trustees. The final report for me is around third-party use of gyms, and I have created a backgrounder there for trustees to go through. And as you'll also know that, of course, that the meeting has picked this up as well. And so there's some background information there, some possible actions for trustees to look at, as well as a staff recommendation. And when we do get to discuss and have questions on this part, I think there might be an opportunity to look at some amendments of their recommendation in terms of some other possible pathways forward. But right now, it's submitted as it is. And that's my report.
Moved by Bill, seconded by Aaron. And now we can go through the areas we can start with the concept of the framework and enhancing early education report, reactions. It's a living document at this point. But we're providing information where we're headed with it.
I'll just make a comment. I think it's great. I love the fact that the budget is in here and that readable format. The only question I'd have is
Sorry.
I'm aware that it's a living and like I said, I think it's great. You have the 2019-20 year evidence. So I'm just, because it was a weird year, let's say for FSA, was that before, after? You know what I mean? I know it's hard to, so we can't put everything into these things.
The data that they require in the ministerial order is such that it's always kind of a year behind. But it's a very good comment in that what we would want to do then, and by the way, I would have included a whole bunch of local assessment data, but we haven't had any for a long time. We just wrapped up those district-wide literacy and numeracy assessments. I've just seen the results of those. We'll be able to bring those forward, but Madeline, they would be included in here as well, so that we had the most recent information. What I can tell you is that, as we suspected, there has been quite a bit of learning loss, a far lower rate of achievement in both literacy and numeracy, far more students taking these assessments at a lower grade level, and the achievement is also quite lower. But you'd like to see that those future pieces represented in here, is that what you're saying too?
Well, and just, I know sometimes people just look at it and don't think and put the 2 and 2 together. Oh, this is why, because there was a.
Oh, I see.
It was under 2019-20 pandemic year.
Yeah.
I know, I'm just saying, sometimes you just look at it and think, oh, what the, because time goes fast and you don't put 2 and 3 together.
Good point, some context.
That's one of the things that we talked about a couple of years ago when we looked at the district data. Is you almost have to have a yearly context piece that you keep somewhere to be able to go back and make those kinds of comments and evaluations. I was going to say that the other day when I was looking at Bonnie Henry's report on COVID, I've never seen so many different ways to graph and present information. And there's some great formats in there that I was still preparing when I was like, people, how do you do that?
So, and on that point, while some of the graphs and the achievement reports come directly from the ministry, Jared Bell, our Director of Instruction, through our new SharePoint capabilities, is able to use a tool called Power BMI. But essentially, it simply means for free, we are able to take a lot of the information through MyEd and other sources and make our own graphs and our own tables. And so we're playing with how to do that.
I really like the idea of getting this stuff. Kind of promote ourselves a bit better.
Yeah.
What we do and why we do it.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say, this is really nice, and I like it kind of fits too with the strategic plan a little bit as well, and it's just nice to have both of these pieces together, and I think it's great. And the QR code works well, I just tried it.
Oh, yeah, good.
Right.
Yeah, so there's a QR code, anyone with a phone in their app can access the electronic version.
You don't
of this.
even need an app, you just need your camera.
Sorry, that's right too. Wow.
No, you just need your camera and you put your camera over it and it takes you right there, so it's nice. It was,
Hey, I just learned something new in the world of technology.
I had to try it.
And Chair, in the future too, in terms of, what we profile or some of the key elements we'd like to take from the summary or the previous year, we can sort of take it to the trustees prior to completing this and saying, and asking you, what are some key pieces that you'd like represented in this, and we can include that.
I'd like to say that I think this is going to be a welcoming in the community, because before we used to do reports out in the community.
Yeah.
And that is one thing over the years I've heard, people go to the doctor's offices, well, not so much right now, and they like to see this kind of information and sit there and read it. So I'm really glad that it's going.
It's different than the coffee talk.
I like it because it's so much of our stuff that's out in the media is the negative stuff. Right? It's nice, we gotta promote good things.
We have to tell our own story too, right?
Yeah.
It's funny, I was showing Helen that, as Ida points out, in the past, that we were actually looking at reports from the time Wayne Cheeseman was here as superintendent. And there used to be these annual reports with similar kinds of information. So it's kind of getting back to what we used to do, because I haven't seen a report for years.
And then we did a calendar a couple of years,
Right.
just to promote it some more.
Yeah.
No, it's nice.
That's aging me.
Activity right.
It goes on and on and on. Interesting, kudos to our team for, helping them get this going, and also to help them make it better. I can't wait till it comes out, because as a parent, this will be really nice to be able to do this and DocuSign and all that stuff. I think it will be very effective. And, paper gets lost.
The secretaries the forms still need to improve, but the paying online piece is being very well received by our clerical. It's actually one of the few times where new initiatives have saved them time. And so,
yeah.
and not only that, what I understood is that they can now see immediately through this software the outstanding balances, which they would have had to look for a separate track.
The only thing I'm going to say is that it has been a long road to get where we are. And if we looked at the cost in terms of our staff's time to support this process, I hope they're not charging us an arm and a leg anymore.
Actually, it's zero cost
Okay, that's
this
good.
year, because all we did, because of the amount of work involved, and because they were really quite misleading at the beginning in terms of what they were offering to sort of fill a sale.
Was a bill of sale.
So there was no cost, and there is no cost. This year, we're able to make some decisions at the end of the year, but now we have reached out to other districts, because we haven't done a lot of this, the legwork, and it is getting to the place where the product is viable.
Just thinking that we should get a percentage.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to discussion related to third-party use of school gyms, there is a recommended motion, but we have some discussion.
Thank you for this, Stephen, and I just want to ask, was any, so I get the rationale behind Margaret Ma as an exception because of the, you know, the city's partnership with that. Was there any discussion on, you know, the city also maybe putting in for cleaning, because that's also, you know, that's gonna be part of our costs, and I get that, but with COVID, that's extra costs now. So if we have third-party use, who's responsible for the cleaning? Is it purely the school district? You know, and I can't, you know, can we rely on the third-party users to clean it according to protocols that we have? So who's liable for those costs? Is it purely school district, or is the city able to kick in some of those costs at this time?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I have connected with the city, and they're being a great partner in this. And essentially, their contribution has been sort of that initial investment into the gym, and then it's kind of up to us to operate it. What I've suggested, and I know that we can handle this financially, is that we will be charging a fee to the user groups that are accepted in terms of that schedule. It won't be enough of the fee to cover all of the costs, because we also want to be a good community partner in this.
Yeah.
What I can tell you from a staff perspective is that we absolutely can cover the costs of this pilot and maybe a couple of other pilots in terms of the custodial and supervision costs because of the federal grant this year. And really, this is all about a 1-year approach to this, and we're gonna blink and there's not gonna be much left to this school year. And so we feel we can handle the costs, that it is a partnership. We're actually sharing some of the guidelines from the city that they've used to reopen some of their facilities, so we're making sure we align those. Health and safety is looking at this along with the administration and Marbury.
Thank you. Yeah, that's awesome.
I'm glad you're open for amendments.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking, because I have actually been approached for Clearview, obviously. And I think when I read that, it's, you know, Marbury is the exception because the city has put in money. Well, Clearview is financed a third by the community. So and the unique situation, and I see that too in the background, you know, for rural schools, because the unique situation is, for example, most of these kids are using, it's kids groups. You're not going to see, I don't think you're going to see adult groups. I shouldn't say that exclusively, but these kids are in that gender identity anyways. They're in the same cohort, right?
I have Chair, I do have, can I read out what might be then an amendment to this recommended motion? And so it currently reads, motion that the board continue to suspend third-party use of school gyms with the exception of Margaret Marbury following strict cleaning, vetting, and supervision protocols. Piece I'm proposing, we can play with the staff may also look into piloting other viable scenarios, including other partnership situations, and where adequate resources or personnel are available and youth access is prioritized.
So wouldn't that amendment then open it up to all schools?
No, but it would be sort of the board, and you know, there's operationally essentially delegate to senior staff to continue to look at one by one situations, prioritizing where there are partnerships like Clearview in place. Then are there adequate resources and supervision and those sorts of things. So basically to give staff leeway to carefully advance potentially other situations.
Because we have this situation with Margaret Law.
Yeah, we have you.
Hudson Hope Gym.
Yeah.
The municipality put a large chunk of change into Hudson Hope Gym. 101 Community Hall Gymnasium is now ours, but so there are some of those situations that we need to honor those community partnerships. And when we look at what we're asking for in relationship to Calvary Halfway and things like that, that was one of their concerns that came up at one of our meetings. Well, are you just going to, something happens, close us out or whatever? So how we treat our partners right now is important, I think, in establishing these partnerships. Ida and Aaron and Bill.
I really like the amended motion because that gives staff the ability, and they're the ones that know who uses the gym They're the ones that know the partnerships and what's going on, because I agree that like 101 and Clearview and Hudson, so, but then we might have another school that doesn't have adequate custodians to do it. And their school would know that, and that their gym normally isn't used, so, but I really like the
Well, I'm just wondering if we should just take out this Margaret Montgomery and just say, with the exception of schools with community partnerships following strict cleaning, vetting, and supervision protocols, and just take the name
Why
of the school
I
out.
might suggest we leave it there is that we do have a little bit of space and time to see how Monterey goes.
Okay, prior to
If
the
it's
other.
okay, we'd like to start with Monterey,
Okay, fair enough.
because health and safety and administration, we're kind of creating this from scratch. And let's get a model going, and then if you can entrust staff to one by one, see what other scenarios are available, probably after Christmas. We'd like to see if we can get Monterey going in by the beginning of December. And see how it goes, and then start to look at other possibilities.
Fair enough. Bill?
All right, so I got a few things. I talked to Sabrina today,
Okay?
and I've had some talks with some other people about this. For starters, I mean, this is my opinion, with the city donating money there, in my opinion, that's no different than our scenario at the high school. Right? How much money was donated there by companies in that, for that gymnasium?
We have an official
Probably-
partnership with the city in Monterey.
Yeah.
We
Right?
don't have a partnership.
Oh, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Right? So I mean, but where am I here? I got a bunch of notes. So I mean, Monterey is a good idea because of the divider, 2 gyms.
Yeah.
But I mean, the same thing, you know, Ken Roberts has the same thing. Right? So I mean, you know, you could use one or the other kind of thing. The custodial cost, I talked to Sabrina about that, and she was saying about having a fee. The big thing I don't want to see is the custodian having to be security too. Okay, there's areas in the province right now, Chilliwack, for example, their soccer club had to hire security guards for their games because the parents wouldn't listen to the safety person on the field. Okay, and they would be just like, you know, custodian will say, you can't come in. Yes, I can. They'd walk in.
And then that group would be coming back.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Yep.
just to address that question while you're on it, what would become problematic if we start to look at 2 or 3 or 4 sites is to have paid 2 personnel. And by the
Yeah.
way, as it says in the proposal, we're only starting with the weekends, Friday night, Saturday and Sunday, right? So it's not during the week. I might suggest that we still start with the plan of the custodian who does say you can come in or you need to do this. And if groups don't listen, they're gone.
Oh, no, I agree. Yeah. Dawson Creek did try to open all the gyms at once, and it failed terribly, I was told.
No, I've been in conversation with Chad. They had one, they are open.
They're all open now again?
Yeah, they're open again.
Okay, because they
They
did shut them down.
had difficulties in one situation that caused a ripple effect throughout the district. So they backed off,
Yeah.
they regrouped and reorganized, and they are open.
Yeah. So I mean, the idea of one started, I'm just saying, I'm agreeing with kind of thing. And I mean, when it comes to, we're only gonna have limited time. So I mean, it's gonna be, you know, sorry for the older people, but school age kids kind of thing. Okay,
The way we've laid this out is to, because it's at Monterey. Yeah. And working with that administration, is to go through an application process that will more than likely start with the groups that were at Monterey. So this is not actually, so while we want to prioritize youth access, it is also about that partnership with the city around those community groups using it, like Northern Volleyball is the group that sent people letter last month.
Yeah.
So in any case, we would set up a vetting and an application process that the administration over there would go through and determine who would be able to come.
okay, that's another thing. I've had a couple of clubs say to me, if you're only gonna use one is it gonna be who they want and that's it kind of thing?
Well, it's
Is it
not.
gonna be limited and, you know, if you're already in there, are you gonna be in there kind of thing?
What's clear is that this pilot and this process will not even come close to satisfying the needs of the community groups out there. And it's as much to see if we can make it work properly as we've all kind of talked about. And so it is gonna probably start with those groups that were there, as long as they were well organized, they have a COVID protocol, and they go through all the vetting that Sabrina, Hunter, and Kathy have created.
Okay, and in your list here, it said the volleyball club and karate.
I received a letter about karate from the provincial organization. The karate is a club that has been at Montgomery, so they'll probably apply.
Who's, which
That's
karate?
Jason Farquharson's out of, him and Chantal. I don't know their karate club, Northern Rockies something.
To be clear, every group will have to apply whether they were at Montgomery or not.
It used to be at
Okay.
Duncan Frank.
Well, no, because when I looked up karate clubs, it wasn't, they weren't on there, but the one main one I found was owned by somebody.
Yeah, so I'm not sure, Bill, but I know there's been a karate club going to Montgomery.
That's Jason's.
So again, I want to make sure they're non-profit groups.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
The Red Dragon, I think, is an owner,
Yeah, no, it's not.
so it's a business.
Got it.
I think the important other piece here that is mentioned, and let's go slowly, is the concept that numbers are on the rise. We know from other places in the province that sporting events and sporting clubs and dance studios have been places of transmission. Going slowly shows that we, as an organization, are being cautious. And I think that cautious approach will be appreciated by our community. Everybody is sacrificing a lot right now. We don't like it, but the concept of having a rise in COVID numbers locally is a big concern. All right, Stephen, can you read the recommendation again with the change, please?
Yes, and I can print it up, but here's the essence. So motion that the board continue to suspend third-party use of school gyms with the exception of Margaret Montgomery, I'll add to start. The exception of Montgomery to start. Following strict cleaning, vetting, and supervision protocols, period. Staff may also look into piloting other viable scenarios. Are you with me, Lydia? Yep. Staff may also look into piloting other viable scenarios, including other partnership situations. And where adequate resources and personnel are available, comma, and youth access is prioritized. That's the motion. That's kind of heavy.
Moved by Ida, seconded by David.
Don't we have to approve his report first and then do this motion?
He accepted the report already.
Did we vote on it? Oh my God, I was here.
I have checks on my.
So, what are we at now? First and seconded, so I'll just say about are we discussing it?
Yeah.
So, while you say priority for youth or whatever, I think, I'll just state, and you've already stated it, but because they're partnership programs, it isn't just about the youth, because the youth are the ones at school every day still getting their gym. There's some adults really suffering, right? So, yeah, and I
I'm
know.
just asking for that sort of to trust staff
Right.
to look at each situation.
Yeah.
For example, if it's 101, you're right, it needs to be the whole community. If it's another location, maybe it's about the hockey group that
Yeah.
needs to get priority over a different
Yeah.
community group. So it's to have the latitude to look at each of those situations.
And I guess my only question is, as we start to look at those situations, are we going to stick with the concept of Friday night and weekends only?
Right now, yes, it is in the, sorry.
I know it's, well, you didn't specify any recommendation, the only thing that before you nail that down in stone, again, because I have been approached by, but regardless, because they would do it an after school, which would also not incur extra cleaning costs, because the custodial would simply do that once they leave, because they have to do it anyways, right? So we're not even looking at
If we go with the concept, trustees, of a scenario by scenario, situation by situation, what's clear is the one at Mont Murray is absolutely weekends only for now. If you kind of let us look at each of those particular situations, we'll do what we can.
Yeah, like each situation is unique.
Right,
So-
and it might depend on the school community, on the administration, on the staff, and on everything else. But what we'll do is we'll look at the whole picture.
I just don't want it to have it,
Good point.
strictly said, weekends only.
Yeah, Marbury will be a weekends only to start.
Yes.
Please explain the rationale for Fridays and weekends.
Yeah, good, thanks for asking that. It was, as the chair alluded to start small.
Mhm.
And it was also to, once you get something started, the anxiety level comes down. Just like when we got everybody back to school in September. The thinking there, David, was that in communicating this to the staff at Marbury, it was that we were just starting with the weekends and that there was ample space and time for the adequate cleaning. So they'll have the electrostatic sprayers come by, do the deep cleaning of the entire area. Whereas in the evening, that compounds perhaps the ability to do those deep cleans.
This is the second part of the question. I mean, there's some adults in the room that could use some exercise. Sorry, no, it's hungry. And I'm with Nicole. This is, I'd love to see the opportunity that things open up in the spring. You can get some exercise.
Yeah, I like the idea of just starting Friday and the weekends, because, I mean, let's start small, because I appreciate you say there's not as much cleaning, but there might be twice as much, because maybe we'll have, because there's cohorts, and maybe we'd have to go in and clean the gym before and after, like, I don't know all the protocols, so I think that we should do that touch with staff to see how it's going to proceed.
And I do think that different buildings at this point in time, based on the staff that are there and that particular staff's health needs, have varying levels of anxiety. I know I've been asked why some are doing this and some aren't, and that's my explanation. We're not all feeling the same way about this. And in that response letter to the one that we got as a board, our number one priority is serving kids and education, and third-party use is wonderful, but it's not our number one priority.
Yeah, question. So I actually have that we moved to accept the report, but I don't have that we actually carried it.
Okay,
So we're in the discussion component of the superintendent's report.
okay.
So we do need to accept the report,
Or-
finish that
okay.
up, and then move on. to
And
the
pull this
recommendation.
motion from it.
And
Is that
pull
what you do?
motion from, yep.
I had it as a separate.
Yeah, you did.
Oh,
Yeah, it is pulled up, so, thank you, Terry, for the progress.
And we can confirm with Leah, but I had it as far as we got moved in second, but no carried yet.
Okay, all in favor of accepting the superintendent's report? Thank you. All right, now, the motion that's been pulled up. Moved by Ida, seconded by Nicole, all in favor?
Okay, thank you.
So you guys, I have to leave there.
Okay. We'll move on to the secretary treasurer's report, page 9.2. Page 17 of the minutes.
report is the financial overview up to October 31st. The report is in the package. I've made a couple of notes just for clarification purposes, so folks understand the differences. So I reported that the Ministry of Ed revenue is lower, just due mainly to July, August always being smaller payments. And the transfers will get bigger and bigger as we go, so that will level out. Other revenues, so you'll see school age therapy is up. We actually have a contract that is larger than our budget. And we will make that change when we do the amended budgets. We have a more robust contract. International students, looks like it's down, but indeed we have students and revenue coming in November. So this is only reporting us to October, but we do have students coming and we are on target for our international students to come in at 10. So it looks down, but it is actually on target. The Alberta education, their money comes in the winter and spring. And so that's why it looks like it's down, and then miscellaneous interests online. So we're on track that way. On the expense side, most of the salary categories you see there are below, so they're lower. And the reason they're lower right now is we are taking advantage of those federal and provincial grants that are coming in, and so they're subsidizing our actual expenses, so they're low right now, but when we adjust to our enrollment, those budgets will be lowered because we will lower them due to the enrollment. But the feds and the provincial grants are picking that up. The new funding tables will come out in December, we'll get a better sense of it. It's an artificial comparison right now, but overall, it's on target. So that's the year-to-date financials.
And then we go through each of the items and then go back.
So I'm gonna go now to the second item in my report, which is a comparison of our FTEs this year versus what we had projected. So this is the 1701 snapshot, September 30th. You'll see that we had originally budgeted to come in at 6463. We have come in at 6279. 0.875, so there's a variance in our FTE numbers, 183 FTE, 0.25. That is all types of learning. That will be our school age, that will be our DL, that will be our CE, and our graduated adults. All categories included. So overall, we're down 183 FTE. What that does is translate on the per student funding model. If you go down to the next section, you'll see that the amended numbers that I'm thinking will come in, no guarantee because the ministry may make any number of changes before then, but preliminarily, we're coming in at 68.8 versus the 70.5 million that we originally budgeted. So we're expecting to be down 1.7 million, but we do know that we have the federal and the provincial grants that will total approximately 2.8 million. So I don't know if anybody has any questions on that, but I will move to the last item, which is the agenda add, which is snow clearing concern. And basically it's just an update on a request that came out of the committee of the whole to follow up on snow clearing issues. So I've summarized their basically conversations with the transportation supervisor regarding our clearing practice and our communication with that group. Any questions? All right, we'll take questions.
I will move the report.
Moved by Erin, seconded by Bill. Any questions? We'll start with the financial overview. Erin?
How is the contract for the care more than what it, because I was under the impression that the contract wasn't any more than what that person was getting paid when they were on staff versus being a contract.
We received a revised contract starting November 1st with different levels. I don't know the basis behind the contract. Steve obviously
Yeah, so
does.
we now, it's the SAT contract, which the MCFD is
Yeah.
happy for the district to allocate. Because they're unable to find OT and PT, enough OT and PT work. We've moved to a contractor as part of that service on Dawson Creek, OT and PT as part of this, that grant. And that covers their costs as well as the administration costs to do that. And so that
Okay,
gets
so-
adjusted each year.
So it's not out of our pocket, we're getting
No, we're
funded for
getting
that.
funding.
Okay,
Sorry.
And they
I was like-
increased their requested service delivery.
right, okay,
So it's a larger contract.
so
than
it's a
the
net
original.
zero for us, kind of, to a point.
If it should be,
It should
if
be.
anything, it provides for some administration costs that we have
Right,
into
right.
that as well.
Okay, thank you.
Definitely a component, for sure.
Any other questions related to the financial overview? Alan?
What point is the federal grants are gonna be coming in and be reflected in? I know, I mean, obviously, I do believe we're gonna get it and see it, it's just.
So I'm just gonna do a little bit of a clarification. So this is the operating financial statement. Any money that we see from the feds or the province, which they have deemed, so I actually asked the question, there's special purpose funds. So we will not actually see that component until we look at amended budget with the full set of ministry schedules. So it's kind of a mixing of, but we have received half of the funding for the federal program for the place, Return to School Safe.
Yeah.
And then the
Yeah,
other
there's-
fund was another 500,000 and we received all of it already. So those monies came in the first quarter.
The amended annual budget's February, right? February, March?
And it has to be completed by the end of February.
Right, so
Yes.
so we should see that.
So
Okay.
we will get amended tables by the ministry
Okay.
middle of December. We will begin to put numbers together probably January and then work through the amended budget process through latter January through February until the board passes it at the February board meeting.
But there will be opportunity in January.
In January to
Bring
go through
back
that process.
The melded
Yeah.
kind of information around the grants along with the ministry funding.
Because that's always the challenge with ministry reporting, is just operating seems to be focused.
1701 enrollment and projected revenue report. Not down by what we could be this year. Any questions related to the human resources support staff summary?
And we'll use the snow removal.
And then, yeah.
So-
All right.
I have a question. So we'll go on.
Yeah.
So if, I'm guessing bus drivers and, but even the public, if they have concerns about the roads to the schools or bus routes, who would they contact? The public.
I suspect we receive calls in our transportation office.
There's a 1-800 number and we'll be sure to circulate that information.
Okay.
Good idea.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any other questions related to school level? All in favor? Moving on to 10.0. Reports of the regular committee of the whole meeting November 2nd, 2020, which is pages 18 to 20 of the agenda. And we were a seconder, please. Moved by Aaron, seconded by Bill.
David's in the corner like this.
I'm sorry, David.
It's all good.
Stephen.
I look at him every time I'm like this. And he's like,
Okay. Are there any errors or omissions in the minutes? All in the question, all in favor? Right. Business arising. Aaron.
The internet letter is done, and I can't remember the list of people that I sent it to. I did write it down. So I just have to think. I have to find it.
Can I ask another question arising from one of them?
Yeah.
So, we were all registered for the BCSA Academy. Do we need to let anybody know if we are attending here or?
Well, as soon as we get the program details, we'll send some stuff out. Our hope, we will need to know who's attending here and who's zooming in, because our plan would be to provide lunch at least, and so we will have to confirm numbers. And what I'm not sure of is if for the keynotes and the larger speakers, whether we want to set it up so that we're going to Zoom once and we all watch on the big screen versus sitting here with everybody on their singular computer with headphones. So that's the one thing that we still need to get sorted out. There are some sort outs, but I'm trying and the information to sort.
Yeah, they haven't even sent it yet when it's coming.
I assumed because they closed registration on the 13th, that at that point in time, we might turn around and get a list. And like I say, I tried earlier today and didn't. Have you missed?
Yeah, so the letter was sent to, well, it's addressed to QP, BCTF, or PRNT, I should say, the MLA, the MP, UBCM, FCM, the city, the Peace River Regional District, the BC Indian Chiefs. I also addressed one to FNESC, the Chamber, Doig River First Nations, Blueberry River First Nations, and Halfway River First Nations. And so Helen is signing it on behalf of the board. And yeah, it's that letter that we all saw. Did I miss?
Yeah, Aaron, I suggest you send one to Hudson's Hope, one to Taylor, where you have all that list.
And Peace River Regional.
I did.
Well, she did say
I
Peace
did.
River
I lost track.
Regional District.
Yeah, no, thanks. I'll send it to. And then, yeah, that was it.
Right, 10.3 policy committee.
Yeah, and I was thinking after when we went through the dates and the calendar, I was like, oh, I should add the policy committee, but then we had already moved on to that. So can we add the policy committee meeting in the calendar dates at the beginning of the agenda?
Like an 8.0 or, sorry, I misunderstood.
No, at the very beginning of the agenda, it has the calendar of events, upcoming events.
Announcements and reminders.
Announcements.
Yeah.
Announcements and
reminder. You
reminders, thank
betcha,
you,
yeah.
sorry, whatever it's called, that's what
We'll
it's
throw
called.
that in there for next.
Yeah, because I was a little late on the uptake there, but yeah, so the meeting's on December 7th at 11. We have, I didn't bring my stuff, but we have a couple of policies to go through. Thank you to Stephen and Terry, and then I will also have some policies to kind of look at as well. It should only be an hour. And Stephen's buying lunch. No, I'm kidding.
Towards BCSTA.
No, just we're still waiting on the stuff for the,
And BCPC has announced their AGM on January 28th. I don't have very much information, but there is a meeting coming up. I'll forward you the information.
So,
It's an online one.
so while we're on for the BC AGM on January 28th, maybe right now we should just book a room, because we usually have more than just the rap code of that. So if they're doing
It's
it
Zoom.
virtual, they might.
It is Zoom. They've
Yeah.
already confirmed that it's Zoom.
do we know if people are allowed to attend if they're in conflict?
The AGM, they usually are.
Allowed to?
I think I went with you.
Okay.
They usually are.
I'm not usually able to go because of work, but Let's get this on too.
It's on too.
I have the hard copy, Helen.
Pardon?
Do you want the hard copy?
Yes, thank you. That saves me trying to find my email. Thanks very much. So the AGM will be by Zoom. And they're saying it will address government issues, including debate of any proposed resolution on elections to board of directors. And there are two things that we need to elect. It will be facilitated in an online format with the specialized supported data on the spot voting simply. And whether they, each Board of Education is represented by a trustee with that direction that's not in conflict. And basically they haven't, I know that the last ones, there's been some professional development and things attached. There really isn't any details at this point. So that'll be a bit of a stay tuned. I don't think that we have any resolutions we would like to take before GCTC at this point, because we would need to be working on those right now. They haven't come up, so. Correspondence. We have a letter from the District of Taylor supporting the before and after school care grant application support that was included in your package. And then we have a response to, under correspondence, response from the federal government related to a letter sent to Bob Zimmer regarding getting international students in, and that letter was sent way back in June, but there is the response to it. Unfinished business, we did 13.0 already, and it's exciting that that's done. Is there any new business? I think so. Michelle?
Well, I don't really have a report other than congratulations to the board and your new appointments, return appointments, applications, elected officials, so. Yeah, other than that, business as usual.
Thank you. So we have, and then we don't have anybody here from QB or DPAC, so we would be at the point in our agenda where we're looking at questions from the press and public.
Thank you. Right now, it looks like there's just staff on here and there are no questions or comments that have come through.
Opportunity was given. So we need our in-camera motions brought forward for implementation. We did have something. Moved by Bill, no, it doesn't have, seconded by David.
Thank you.
Seconded by David. All in favor? Ready to take a motion to adjourn? Moved by Aaron, seconded by David. All in favor?